Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from Fozzy Boombox, out May 6 on Mascot Label Group. This album has 12 tracks, 46 minutes in length, and this the band's 8th full-length studio album. They are an American heavy metal band. Now, as far as the design goes, this album feels very different from what I was expecting coming in. I was hoping for a record that would be more connected, that would offer you a sense of balance, a sense of cohesiveness, almost a journey, if you will, from that first song all the way to the last, where you can grow with a record, you can grow with the experiences that the album is giving you. That's not what this album offers. There's a little bit of chaos and how everything comes together. It feels to me that the album was created with the individual songs in mind and not necessarily looking at what the final result was going to be. Almost thinking that if you have enough quality in these individual songs, if they all could be singles, therefore the record is going to be strong in its overall image. But I don't feel like there is enough strength in those individual songs, and therefore the strength of the collective becomes affected. It's an album that doesn't move the barometer one way or another, and the structure, the design that it has, doesn't really capture the attention of the listener, specifically if you're going from that first song all the way to the last song. I mean, a pure example of this chaos in this design is having a cover song, Relax, in the middle of the album. Why not move it towards the end, have it almost as if it would be a bonus track? Having it in the middle, I don't know, it just feels really awkward for the overall experience. You're trying to get into this new material, you're trying to get into these new songs, and then you have a cover that just feels a little bit out of place because it is a cover, not necessarily because of the sound or the approach that they took. So when I look at this overall design, I see what they were trying to achieve. I just don't think they got there. Now, as far as soundscape is concerned, this album is perhaps a little bit more modern rock, modern metal, if you will. Not as much of the classic rock, classic heavy metal that I was also expecting coming in. It has a lot of skillet, it has a lot of Shinedown. It feels like they took pages off of the books of those two bands and they tried to create their own Fozzy DNA around of what those two bands have done over the years. It clearly comes across in the sound. It becomes something that sticks out when you're listening to these tracks, because at times you really feel like you're listening to one of those bands. And a lot of that comes from the synth-driven experience. This record relies heavily on the synths, in my opinion, too much. It takes all the warmth out of the sound, it takes all the raw feel, all the raw nature that you would expect on a metal or rock album. It becomes more pop than anything else. It's pop rock at its best, and I don't even think it scratches that surface. It just feels very empty. It's empty calories. The sound doesn't have life. The sound feels overly produced at every single turn. It feels very polished. It feels like every single element that perhaps would give it a rugged edge or would give it a rugged motion or rugged movement has been removed, and everything is in a perfect box with perfect surroundings, with all the perfect fixings. And that to me is not rock and roll, and this album really feels a little bit detached from that reality. Now, as far as the elements within that sound, you have to talk about the drums and you have to talk about the guitars. The drums, because they have a new drummer, and the question is going to be, how is this drummer going to adapt to the overall soundscape, adapt to the band? Well, I feel for this record, for the sound that they put forward, he was a perfect fit. It really didn't sound like out of place. It felt like he was creating an experience that added to the overall image of what the soundscape of what this record was going to be all about. And I felt like there was a little bit of strength at times within the drum sound, perhaps one of my favorite elements throughout this entire album. I just wish they had a little bit more power. I wish they were a little bit more raw at times in order to give the record some strength, because it felt overall that the album was very contained. Now, as far as the guitars are concerned, they're not the motor. Once again, this is a very synth-driven soundscape album. So the guitars don't have the force, they don't have the impact that you would hope for. Now, there are some great melodies, there are some great riffs, there are some great solos, but even the solos feel a little bit short. I wish they went a little bit longer at times. I wish they were a little bit more elaborate, that they added a little bit more life, a little bit more energy in terms of what these tracks was all about. But when you look at what they're trying to achieve here, which is a very catchy, very hooky style record, you definitely end up losing a little bit of the strength, a little bit of the raw nature of the guitars within this experience. And this album really feels a little bit flat. when it comes to the overall guitar performance. Now, as far as the vocals are concerned, this is perhaps the softest spot on the album. I felt like the vocals were absolutely horrible. They felt very robotic, not organic at all, overly produced, as is the sound of the entire album. Almost like the vocals were not really there, like they were created in a vacuum, that they had a lot of elements fixing all of these imperfections in order for the vocal style to fit this soundscape to a T. Does it fit? Of course it does, because both sound and vocals feel overly produced and overly polished. But this is not what rock and roll is all about. This album really goes towards a different direction as far as I'm concerned, as far as what my expectations from Fozzy was all about. This is almost a pure pop rock or even pop album in terms of how it's put together, in terms of the experience that it gives and the soundscape that it offers. Definitely an album that's not gonna make my list. Now, as far as favorite songs are concerned, I picked one of the singles because it was really hard for me to pick favorite songs on this record. There's not much on this album that I enjoyed, but I Still Burn, I feel like out of all of the singles, is perhaps my favorite one. It has some great elements into it. The drums sound strong enough, not overly powered, but strong enough. The guitars have a sense of drive, but not overpowering as well. I like the solo. A little bit too short. I wish was a little bit longer. Overall, the track has this pop rock, pop vibe to it. It's a complete reflection of what the entire album is all about. But if I have to pick one of the singles, I definitely go with I Still Burn, because I feel like it's the one that perhaps has a little bit more energy, the one that perhaps has a little bit more of a memorable moment to it when it comes to sound, vocals, and lyrics. After that, we have Army of One, a power ballad, a song that I really enjoy from a soundscape perspective. The sound of this song is really interesting because it has a little bit of a Bon Jovi vibe. It has that big arena power ballad feel to it, but it also has some country vibes in it. And that sound, that mixture of those elements really makes the song sound-wise stand out. The part that I wasn't a huge fan is how the vocals interact with it. If you have a song like this, if you have a big arena, big power ballad style feel track that has some country elements, you want the vocals to be as raw, as organic as possible, and you still get the same vocal delivery that you get on all of the other tracks, which have more of a synth sound, that have more of that pop feel. So the vocals feel a little bit disconnected from the emotion that the sound brings. Still love the track, but it definitely hurts how impactful this song could be all around. Last but not least, Relax, a Frankie Goes to Hollywood cover that's smack down in the middle of this record. Now, I'm not surprised that this is one of my favorite songs. They have, when I mean they, I mean Fozzy, they have one of my favorite covers of all time, Big City Nights, a Scorpions cover. It really ranks high in my list of covers, so I'm not surprised that this one made my top 3 songs of the album. It's a song that really fits the overall concept of the record. Sound-wise, this track fits in like a glove. It sounds like everything that came before, and it sounds like everything that comes after. It has all the same ingredients. Overly polished, a lot of synths, a lot of having the synths driving the experience of the song, having the vocals feel very robotic in that perspective, adding electronic elements into them, which is all part of the original track, but all part of the overall experience of this album. So I feel like this is actually perhaps the best song to cover if you're going to include a cover in the overall design of Boombox. And therefore, I like the song, I like how it feels, and I like how it merges with the overall concept. This is it. Fozzy, Boombox, out May 6 on Mascot Label Group. Let me know your thoughts on the singles, on the band. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.